The site selected for civilian internees was Huntley Towers, a gracious mansion from another land set on a hill in Paget. Striking, as much for its un-Bermudian style of architecture as for its prominent position on a hill overlooking Hamilton. When war broke out, Ralph Ferguson was a young sergeant in the Bermuda Volunteer Rifle Corps.
And one day, we marched my platoon from St. George's to Warwick Camp. And when we got there, we were told not to dismiss the platoon, that we had a job to do. We had to put a guard on Huntley Towers. Now, I said, where's that? And they said, well, it's just beyond Warwick Camp. I said, splendid. Well, what's our transport? They said, transport? King George gave you transport when he gave you a pair of boots. So I had to march my platoon from Warwick Camp back to Huntley Towers. Now, when I got here, I found a policeman and 2 British officers. Now, there was nobody else here. I was surprised. I said, well, where are these so-called prisoners? They said, well, they haven't got here yet. They'll get here very shortly. But you see that wire over there? I said, yes, unfortunately. He said, well, they have to put that all around the building. I said, but do you realize, of course, how much all around the building means? It's very easy to say, but very difficult to do. He said, well, son, it's hard, but it's British. So we had to do it. But then we noticed a couple of trucks and some cars, well, not cars we know of them today. They came up, and out of them got not big, burly German people, at the so-called people at the time, but there were ladies and gentlemen, and a couple of girls. And I looked at those and I said, my goodness gracious, here we are with rifles, 5 rounds in the magazine, and we've been told by the British officers we mustn't let go of our rifles at any time. And I looked at these people and I looked at my men and I said, well, let's put this barbed wire up. And then we were informed that the telephones had been disconnected, and then I was to put a guard on each one of the doors because the people were not allowed out of the building. I said, all right. And I suddenly thought to myself, how horrible. Here our men are walking around with so-called loaded rifles. And I thought, well, I asked them to take the rifles and put them down over there and with the rest of the platoon, cut some oleander sticks and use those. They seemed more appropriate. But things progressed from there. Here's a humorous note. Came the evening time, and we suddenly found that they'd forgot about us at Warwick Camp, and nobody thought of sending any food over to us or anything, so the prisoners fed us. They also gave us breakfast. Now, when I say we had German prisoners here, they weren't German prisoners really. They were enemy aliens. There were people who lived in Bermuda for many years. There were people I knew. I knew them quite well. One of them had a daughter, and we had to escort her to school. Later, we used to ride bicycles. No rifles, of course, but we'd send one of my men with them to school, and they rode along with her and went with her to pick her up. And we had men and ladies here who had business in town and had to go in. We had to send a man along with them. Silly but true.